Man, I never thought I'd be that guy, you know? The one who gives everything to a woman and gets blindsided like a fool. But here I am, telling you my story like it's some damn soap opera. I met Amanda at a mutual friend's barbecue 6 years ago. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made people stop mid-conversation. Not because she was loud or dramatic, but because she had this energy. Confident, elegant. She smiled like she had life all figured out. And I was just a regular dude. Hardworking, simple, honest. Nothing fancy. I worked construction during the day and delivered food some nights just to save enough for us to build something one day. That was always the dream, us. In the beginning, we were inseparable. She made me feel like I was the center of her world. Always sending cute messages, randomly showing up at my job with lunch, whispering, "I love you so much" before falling asleep. You start to believe that kind of love is bulletproof. That once a woman says, "You're my person," nothing's going to change that. But that's the lie, right? Time changes people. Or maybe it just exposes who they really are. It started small like all disasters do. First, she stopped texting me like before. I'd text her, "Good morning, love," and she'd just respond with a thumbs up emoji. You laugh it off at first, thinking maybe she's just tired or stressed. Then she stopped waiting for me to eat dinner. She'd either eat before I got home or say she wasn't hungry. Next thing I know, she's sleeping with her back turned to me every night like I'm some roommate she barely tolerates. I asked her if something was wrong. You know what she said? "I just need space." "You're too emotionally demanding." Emotionally demanding? I barely even asked her for anything. I work my ass off every day just to come home and hug her, talk about our day, maybe watch a show. But even that was apparently too much. One day, out of nowhere, she just drops it. We were sitting on the couch watching some show. Honestly, I don't even remember what it was. Probably something I didn't care about just because she liked it. She muted the TV, looked at me like she was about to confess to a crime, and said, "Can I be honest with you?" I nodded. My chest already felt tight, like my body knew what was coming. "I don't think I love you anymore." Boom. Just like that. No tears. No hesitation. Just "I don't love you anymore," like she was reading a line from a script she rehearsed. I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there, staring at the woman I gave my whole damn heart to, and she looked so calm, like she was finally relieved to say it. "I still care about you," she continued, "but I'm not in love with you." Bro, let me tell you, there's a difference between heartbreak and humiliation. That was the moment my entire reality flipped. I couldn't even cry. I just nodded like a dumbass and said, okay, that's all I could manage." That night, she went to sleep like everything was normal. Meanwhile, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, asking myself what the hell did I do wrong? I kept replaying our whole relationship in my head, trying to find the moment when things shifted. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. She started staying out later, said she was working late or meeting friends. But I knew something was off. The way she'd smile while texting, the sudden gym memberships, the perfume that wasn't hers. You know when you've shared a bed with someone long enough, you just know when their body language changes? Yeah, that. I wanted to confront her so many times, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I kept hoping it was just a phase, that she'd snap out of it, that she'd realize I was the one who always had her back. The guy who paid the rent, who fixed the leaky sink, who took care of her when she had food poisoning and slept on the floor next to her because she didn't want to be alone in the bathroom. That guy. But one night, I couldn't take it anymore. It was a Friday. She told me she was going to dinner with coworkers. She got dressed like she was going on a red carpet. Heels, tight dress, hair done up, makeup perfect. I stood in the hallway watching her put on lipstick, and something inside me just snapped. I said, "You never look like that when we go out." She didn't even flinch, just smiled and said, "That's because you don't make me feel like dressing up." I swear to God, that sentence broke me. I didn't say anything. I just let her leave. Then I sat down on our bed, stared at the floor for a good hour, and knew right there I was done. The guy who used to fight for her, chase her love, make excuses for her coldness, he died that night. What came after wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something much colder. It was silence. And silence, my friend, is how revenge begins. But I'll save that part for later. Just know, from that night on, I stopped begging, stopped asking, stopped waiting. I started planning. Because if she wanted to act like I didn't matter, I was going to show her exactly what that meant. So yeah, after that night, when Amanda looked me dead in the eye and said she didn't love me anymore, something inside me just switched off. You know that moment when your brain finally catches up with what your heart's been trying to ignore for months? That was it for me. I stopped loving her that night. Or maybe I just stopped hoping she'd come back to the woman I fell for. Either way, it was like flipping a light switch. But here's the thing. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't pack up and leave like some dramatic movie scene. I stayed quiet. I played along. And that's when the real revenge began. See, she thought I was weak. Thought I was some desperate puppy still clinging to her. But she didn't realize I'd already made a decision. A very calm, dangerous one. I was going to ruin her, but I wasn't going to lift a single finger to scream or fight. I was going to let her fall all on her own. I just needed to quietly remove the safety net. First thing I did, I stopped funding her life. And trust me, she didn't even notice at first. I had access to her joint account, but she never checked what I was doing because she always assumed I'd be her personal ATM. So I moved 80% of our savings to a new account with just my name on it. Quietly. Smooth. No big transfers that would raise red flags. I did it slowly, over 2 weeks. She never questioned a thing. Next, I took my name off the lease for the car she was driving. Yeah, she was flaunting around in that SUV like a boss, going to dinners that were really late-night hotel stops. That car? I was paying for it. So I contacted the dealership, made the payments up to date, then transferred ownership to my name and prepared the paperwork to repossess it when the time came. Not yet. Timing was everything. Then I started pulling back emotionally. Not in a loud way. I was still me, just colder, distant. I let her cheat. Yeah, read that again. I let her cheat. I stopped asking where she was going, didn't react to her fake stories, didn't try to get her attention. I made her feel like I didn't care anymore, because I didn't. You know what that did? It made her arrogant. She started coming home even later. Started laughing at her phone while texting someone else, not even bothering to hide it. At one point, she even left her phone unlocked on the bed while she went to shower. I saw the messages. Some dude named Caleb, talking about how she couldn't wait to get out of this boring marriage. About how I was just too nice. Too nice. That's what she called me. As if being loyal and committed was a weakness. But you know what was funny? Even while she was trash-talking me, she still hadn't made a single move to leave. She wanted both. The security of a husband who paid the bills and the thrill of sneaking around with some loser who probably lived with his mom. So I gave her rope and watched her hang herself. Behind the scenes, I met with a lawyer. A damn good one. Explained everything. We had no kids, but we had assets. A condo, 2 cars, savings, investments. The lawyer told me to start collecting proof, so I did. I backed up her text messages, printed screenshots, took photos of her car parked overnight outside a different apartment complex. I even got security footage from a gas station she used regularly when she was at work late. The timestamps didn't lie. While she thought she was getting away with it, I was building a fortress of facts. But I didn't stop there. I also started changing myself. Quietly. I hit the gym. Not for her, for me. I started waking up at 5 a.m., running, eating clean, lifting. It wasn't about revenge at first. It was just about feeling alive again. Like I wasn't some guy sitting in the corner waiting to be loved. I started dressing better, carrying myself different. Even my coworkers noticed. One of the guys at work, Tony, he said, "Man, you look like you're about to launch a company or something." I just smiled. Because yeah, I was about to launch something, a new version of myself. At the same time, I started flirting. Not hooking up, not sleeping around, just talking. Light, fun conversations with women who smiled at me, laughed at my jokes. Reminded me I was still a man, that I still had value. I needed that reminder. I was getting it from everywhere but home. And Amanda noticed. Funny how that works. You stop chasing, they start wondering. One day she came home and asked, "You've been quiet lately. You seeing someone?" I looked her in the eye and said, "Would you care if I was?" She didn't answer, just walked away. But the gears were turning. I could see it in her face. She didn't like that I was slipping through her fingers. But it was already too late. I was light years ahead in this game. The final move came on our anniversary. Yeah, I know. Sounds petty. But trust me, it was poetic. She thought I'd forgotten. I acted like I did. She got dressed that night and said she was going out with friends. I didn't say anything, just gave her a kiss on the cheek and wished her a fun night. Meanwhile, I had something different planned. She came home at 3 a.m. I was already asleep, or at least she thought I was. Next morning, I woke up, made coffee, and told her we needed to talk. Calm, collected. I laid out everything. The texts, the photos, the proof. Her face went pale. She tried to interrupt. I told her, don't bother. This isn't a conversation. This is a goodbye. I handed her the divorce papers, already filled out. Told her I'd be moving out that weekend, and she'd need to figure out her own rent by next month, since the joint account was now closed and the car she was driving. Yeah, that was mine again starting Monday. She sat there frozen. No words, just blinking. I told her the lawyer would handle everything, that there was nothing else to say. She broke down. I didn't flinch, because revenge isn't about screaming, bro. It's not about yelling, I caught you. It's about being so calm, so composed, that the person realizes they were never in control, and that you were 10 steps ahead the whole time. I walked away from that house with nothing but my gym bag and dignity. Best trade I ever made. And she? Well, we'll get into that next. Let's just say karma started dialing her number real fast. Man, you know how people always say, she's going to regret it one day? I used to roll my eyes at that. Sounded like something bitter dudes said just to make themselves feel better. But let me tell you something real. Regret has a sound. It's a late-night phone call, a shaky voice, a pause before a sob. And when it finally comes, it doesn't feel like victory. It just feels like confirmation. Let me rewind a bit. After I walked out that door, after I handed Amanda the papers, reclaimed my car, cut the accounts, and made it all official, I thought I'd feel fireworks. You know, like one of those scenes in the movies where the guy stands on a cliff, wind blowing, arms wide open, free at last. But nah, it wasn't like that. It was quiet. I got into my car, drove to a cheap Airbnb I'd booked for a couple of weeks, and just sat in the driveway for 15 minutes. No music, no tears, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like your life's been put on mute. The weirdest part? I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. I missed the early days, the laughter, the I love you texts, the random forehead kisses in the kitchen. But her, the woman she became, I didn't even recognize her anymore. That first week alone felt like a detox. I slept better, woke up earlier, ate real food instead of the crap I used to order while waiting for her to come home from God knows where. I started living for me again. It took less than a month for her to start showing signs of panic. It started with texts, short, stupid ones. Can we talk? I didn't expect you to walk away like that. I think we both made mistakes. I didn't answer. Not out of anger. I just didn't feel anything. And when you don't feel anything, you don't owe anything. A week later, I got a call. Didn't answer. Next day, another one. This time at 11:42 p.m. That one, I picked up. Not because I wanted to hear her out. I was just curious what rock bottom sounded like. The line was quiet at first. Then, a sniffle. It's me, she said. Her voice was cracked, shaky. Please, don't hang up. I stayed quiet. I messed up, she continued. I don't even know where to start. I thought I wanted something different. I thought I needed more excitement, more fun. I thought maybe you were too soft, too safe too. She paused, then laughed awkwardly, like even she knew how dumb it sounded now. But I was wrong. So wrong. Still, I said nothing. She kept going. Caleb ghosted me 2 weeks ago. He moved to another state. Said he wasn't ready for anything serious and never wanted to be a homewrecker. Can you believe that? Her voice cracked again. The man I threw everything away for disappeared like I meant nothing. And you were always there. Always good to me. I could hear her try not to cry, but it was spilling out. I miss you, she whispered. God, I miss you so much. I don't know who I am without you. I don't even recognize myself anymore. That's when I finally spoke. You said you didn't love me. There was silence. I know, she said. I thought I didn't. I was confused. Lost. I thought maybe love was supposed to feel different. Yeah, I said. It is supposed to feel different. It's supposed to feel real. Not like manipulation, not like indifference, not like being made to feel invisible in your own home. She started crying harder. I just want a chance to fix this, she begged. We could go to therapy, start over. I'll do anything. No, I said. Calm, steady, honest. You don't get to come back now that your fairy tale fell apart. I gave you everything. My time, my loyalty, my trust. And you treated it like it was nothing. You killed the part of me that loved you, and now you want to borrow the pieces you shattered. She went silent again, just breathing heavily, trying to form words, but they wouldn't come. You used to say I was boring, I said. But you know what's boring? Starting over with someone who already proved what they're capable of. Then came the final blow. I'm not angry anymore, Amanda. I'm just free, and I'm never giving that up again. She cried, sobbed, said things like, please don't say that. You're all I have left. I'll change. But it didn't matter. I'd already closed that chapter, burned the pages, tossed the book in the river. I hung up, blocked her number the next morning. A few weeks later, I heard from a friend that she moved in with her sister, lost her job due to attendance issues, and was bouncing between temp gigs. She was depressed, isolated, said she made the biggest mistake of her life. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post cryptic quotes online. I just went on with my life. I met someone new a few months later. Someone kind. Someone who looked me in the eyes when I talked and didn't check her phone while I did. I didn't rush into anything. I wasn't trying to fill a void. I just let it happen naturally. We started as friends, grew into something deeper, something peaceful. And that's the part people don't talk about when it comes to revenge. It's not the car repossession. It's not the legal paperwork. It's not the cold goodbye. It's peace. That moment when you realize you're no longer tethered to someone who once made your soul ache every day. That's the real win. Not their tears, not their regret, but your freedom. So yeah, she called crying and said, I'm sorry. And I meant it when I said, I feel nothing. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's detachment. You never think the person who once clung to you in bed, whispered, I can't live without you, in the dark, would one day stare you down and tell you to vanish. But that's exactly what happened to me. Her name was Lauren, and at one point, I could truly believe she was my forever. We weren't perfect, sure. We had our ups and downs like every couple, but there was always love, or at least I thought there was. The truth is, sometimes love doesn't end in fire or screaming. Sometimes it just dies in small, quiet moments where one person stops showing up. The final days of our marriage didn't explode. They eroded. It started with subtle shifts. I come home from work, exhausted, hopeful for a hug, a smile, a how was your day? But she'd barely glance up from her phone. Dinner used to be something we cooked together, something that filled the house with laughter and wine and music. Lately, it was silence. She'd eat early without me, or not at all. And when we did sit together, conversation had become surface level, dry, like we were co-workers forced to share a table. Still, I tried. I brought home her favorite pastries from that little cafe on Fifth, took her car in for servicing without her asking, left sticky notes on her mirror with words like, you're beautiful, and we'll be okay. She'd throw them away. No thank you. No smile. Just blank eyes and cold air. At night, she began sleeping with her back to me. Not just turned away, but distant. Like even the thought of touching me annoyed her. I'd reach over just to feel her skin, even if for a second. And she'd flinch, pull the blanket tighter. There was no cheating, no dramatic betrayal. Just this invisible wall she kept building one brick at a time. And I was on the outside, watching her walk further and further away, inside our own home. I brought it up gently one evening. She was scrolling through her laptop on the couch. I sat beside her, quietly, and said, hey, are we okay? She didn't even look at me, just sighed and said, I'm tired, Mark. I don't want to talk about this again. But we never talk, I replied. You don't even look at me anymore. She closed the laptop, finally met my eyes, and that's when I realized she was already gone. I feel suffocated, she said. It's always the same thing. You're too emotional, always needing something. I just want space. Can you give me that? I'm not asking for much, I said. I'm just asking to not feel like a stranger in my own marriage. That's when she stood up, walked to the kitchen, and mumbled under her breath, "God, I wish you'd just disappear from my life." I froze. She didn't scream it, didn't throw anything, just said it with calm, cutting cruelty, like someone confirming a business cancellation. I sat there, hands numb, staring at the hallway where she vanished. The woman I had loved for 7 years had just told me, to my face, to disappear. Like I was a burden, like I was nothing. And you know what's wild? I didn't say a word. I didn't argue, didn't break down. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, opened my closet, and started packing. There was no dramatic music, no rain pounding on windows, just quiet drawers opening, hangers sliding off the rod. A man collecting pieces of himself from a life he thought would last. I packed enough to fit into 2 duffel bags. I left the rest, not out of kindness, but because I didn't want to take anything that reminded me of what we had become. I grabbed my wallet, my phone, and my keys. I walked out the front door at 1:14 a.m. She never came after me. No message, no call, no voice behind me saying wait. She had told me to disappear. And for the first time in months, I listened. I drove for hours. No destination. Just needed the road. I stopped at a rest station at dawn, slept in the car for 2 hours, then headed to my brother's place 2 states away. I told him I needed a few days. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a spare key and let me crash on the couch. I spent the next week like a ghost, walking around unfamiliar streets, drinking cheap coffee, staring out at the sky, and wondering how someone could go from kissing you goodnight to treating you like dead weight. Lauren didn't contact me, not once, and that told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected me to actually leave. She probably assumed I'd go sleep on a friend's couch, then come back a few days later with my tail between my legs, apologizing, begging, hoping to patch things up. But I didn't. I didn't come back. I didn't text her. I didn't even check her social media. I vanished, not to hurt her, not out of revenge, but because when someone tells you, with full clarity and no remorse, to disappear from their life, you owe it to yourself to finally take them at their word. I rented a room in a shared apartment in a quiet part of town, started freelancing, worked small gigs, slowly rebuilt my life from the ground up. I changed my number, cut ties with mutual friends, moved in silence, no drama, no explanations. I became a man with no past, and that's what saved me. Meanwhile, I heard whispers through cousins, through old college friends. Lauren told people I had abandoned her, that I just walked out one night. She painted me as the quitter, the one who gave up. Let her. I wasn't interested in defending myself. I had spent too long trying to explain myself to someone who no longer cared to listen. What mattered wasn't what she said. What mattered was this. I gave her everything I had, and when she told me to leave, I did. And that silence? That was the beginning of my peace. Disappearing wasn't the hard part. Staying gone, that took something deeper. After I walked out of Lauren's life, I didn't just change cities. I changed everything. I moved to Austin, didn't tell a soul, rented a small studio above a mechanic shop with paper-thin walls and a fridge that barely kept milk cold. It was nothing glamorous, not even close. But it was mine. It was quiet. And more than anything, it was far away from the version of me that used to beg for scraps of affection. The first few months were rough. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. I worked random jobs, part-time deliveries, freelance web gigs, manual labor here and there. Anything to stay afloat. I ate cheap. I wore the same 3 shirts on rotation. I slept on a mattress on the floor. But despite all that, I wasn't miserable. For the first time in years, I had peace. No cold shoulders. No emotional landmines in my own home. No walking on eggshells, trying to keep someone interested in me. The silence in that studio didn't hurt. It healed. I woke up one morning, looked in the cracked bathroom mirror, and didn't recognize myself. My face was tired, scruffy, pale. I looked like a man who had been surviving, not living. That was the turning point. So I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't just disappear. I'd evolve. I joined a cheap gym around the corner. Nothing fancy, just weights, sweat, and discipline. I went every day, even when I didn't feel like it. Especially then, I started running. Early in the morning when the streets were still empty and the world hadn't woken up to judge me yet. And the more I moved my body, the more my mind began to move too. I started reading again. Books on psychology, discipline, business, and self-worth. I listened to podcasts during late-night shifts. I cut out alcohol, got a proper bed, invested in therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry unhealed wounds into my next chapter. Within a year, I had built a modest life. I landed a stable remote job doing UX design. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. I had enough to finally furnish my apartment. Bought a used car, got decent clothes, started walking with my head a little higher. People noticed. Strangers smiled at me. Women glanced twice. But I wasn't chasing anyone. Not yet. My focus was razor sharp on becoming the kind of man who doesn't ask for love, but commands respect. Not through arrogance, through presence, through peace. And all this time, I never reached out to Lauren. Not once. No texts, no calls, no lurking on social media. She had told me to disappear, and I had honored her wish. What she didn't realize was that the man she'd told to vanish wasn't sulking somewhere. He was rising. A few mutual acquaintances tried to connect me back into the old social circles, birthdays, group chats. Hey, I ran into Lauren the other day. I declined every time. I wasn't interested in updates. I didn't care what she was posting. I wasn't waiting for her to change. She had made her choice. And in her mind, I'm sure she pictured me as a lost cause. The quiet man who left in silence, probably ashamed, probably stuck. Maybe even crawling back to family or hiding behind a bottle. But the truth was, I was sharpening every day. By the end of the second year, I had started a side hustle, a small brand helping local businesses with branding and web presence. Word got around. Referrals grew. I reinvested every dollar. By the third year, I was turning a consistent profit. No debt, no noise, just progress. Physically, I had changed too. I was down 30 pounds, leaner, stronger. My skin was clearer. My posture had improved. I didn't walk with my head down anymore. I didn't wait to be invited. I created space where I went. And emotionally, I was steady. No outbursts. No desperation. Just quiet control. One night, I sat in my new apartment, a 2-bedroom in a clean, modern building with big windows and a view of the skyline. I was sipping tea. No TV, just the hum of the city. And I realized it had been 5 years. 5 full years since I had last looked at Lauren. 5 years since she'd told me, without hesitation, to just disappear from my life. She probably assumed I would come back eventually, that I'd knock on her door, ask for another chance, say, I still love you. Maybe she even told herself a story where she was the victim, where I abandoned her without explanation. Let her, because the man I had become didn't need to rewrite the past. He just needed to outgrow it. I didn't hate her. In fact, I silently thanked her. Because that rejection, that cold dismissal, it forced me to meet myself, to rebuild, to become someone better than I ever thought possible. And that's when it happened, the moment I didn't expect, the collision of past and present. It was a Friday night. A friend from my team was getting married. Small ceremony, intimate, and they had asked me to be part of the design setup. I almost declined, but something in me said go. So I went. It was in a rustic little event hall on the edge of town. String lights, live music, a simple outdoor garden where the reception was set. And then, as I stepped inside, adjusting my cufflinks, scanning the crowd, I saw her. Lauren, standing by the open bar. Same eyes, same posture, but older. Not in a bad way, just softened, like someone who had walked through a few storms herself. She hadn't seen me yet, but I froze. For a second, my breath caught in my throat. 5 years. Then she turned, and our eyes met. And in that moment, I swear, I watched her body go stiff. Her drink tilted slightly in her hand. Her jaw opened barely. Her lips trembled, and she sat down. Not walked, not turned away. She sat, as if the sight of me had taken the ground from under her. That's where this chapter ends. The man she told to disappear was standing in front of her, tall, composed, and no longer hers. What she never saw coming was that the man she pushed away wasn't gone. He had just become someone she could no longer reach. 5 years is a long time. It's long enough to heal, long enough to evolve, long enough for a man to stop looking over his shoulder and long enough for a woman to assume the past will never catch up to her. But the past has a strange way of appearing exactly when we least expect it. And that day, it walked into the room wearing a navy suit, polished shoes, and a confidence she had never seen in me before. It was a wedding. My business partner's younger sister was getting married. She'd invited us both, said it would mean a lot if we came. I almost didn't go. I'm not the suit and dance floor type anymore. But my partner insisted. Come on, man. We've earned some celebration. Just show up, have a drink, eat the cake, leave after the first dance. Simple. I agreed. The reception was held at a vineyard just outside the city. Open air, live string quartet, golden hour sunlight leaking through tall trees. The kind of place designed for Instagram and memories. I arrived just before the ceremony began, found my seat near the middle row, and quietly blended in. I nodded politely at people I didn't know, smiled when it felt appropriate, and kept my hands folded calmly in my lap. Then, during cocktail hour, as I stood by the patio railing, sipping sparkling water, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. You ever feel someone's presence before you see them? That's what it was like. I turned slightly, and there she was. Lauren, hair tied back in a neat braid, thin black dress, simple pearl earrings. She was walking toward the drink table with slow, casual steps. I don't know why she was there. Maybe a friend of the bride. Maybe a plus one. Fate doesn't send an RSVP. She hadn't seen me yet, but I saw her. And for a few seconds, I simply watched. Not out of bitterness. Not even out of curiosity. I was just still. She looked older. Not in a bad way. Just worn. The kind of look you get when life doesn't go the way you imagined, but you're too proud to admit it. I turned back toward the vineyard, ready to let her pass behind me without a word. But something stopped her. Maybe it was my posture. Maybe it was the voice of someone nearby saying my name. Or maybe it was the eerie familiarity of the back of my head after all those nights of sleeping back to back. She paused, then said my name, hesitantly. Mark. I turned around slowly. She stared. For a moment, her brain tried to deny it. Her eyes flicked across my face, scanning the angles, the beard, the fit of my jacket, the change in how I stood. Then I watched it happen, that exact second of recognition. Her lips parted, her breath caught, and her knees actually gave out. She stumbled backward and had to hold the edge of the drink table for balance. A friend nearby reached to steady her, confused. I didn't move. She stared at me like she was looking at a ghost. Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly, not the kind that build slowly, but the kind that rush in when the past hits like a freight train. I thought you were gone, she whispered. I tilted my head slightly, keeping my voice low and steady. You told me to disappear. She took a step forward, trembling. I didn't mean it like that. I was angry. I was selfish. I said nothing. Mark, she breathed, wiping her face quickly. You look so different. I mean, God, it's really you. I nodded. It is. She searched my face for something, recognition, softness, maybe the old version of me she thought would still be waiting under the surface. But that man no longer lived in me. I tried to find you, she lied. I raised an eyebrow slightly. You never called. Her face crumbled. I didn't think you'd ever speak to me again. I thought I ruined everything. And I did. She took another step forward, voice cracking. You have no idea how many nights I lay awake wishing I could take back what I said. How many times I imagined you walking through the door again. But I guess I never thought I'd actually see you. I could have lashed out. Could have listed every night I cried alone. Every birthday, every holiday, every job milestone I celebrated by myself. But I didn't. Because the difference between healing and hurting is silence. I let her keep talking. I was stupid, she whispered. I was cold. I pushed you away when you needed me most. And when you left, I thought you'd come crawling back like everyone else I've pushed away before. But you never did. And I realized I didn't just lose a husband. I lost the best person who ever believed in me. She was sobbing now, full tears, messy real. The way people cry when they know forgiveness isn't guaranteed. I've changed, Mark. I swear I have. I'm not the same woman you left. And for the first time in years, I believed her. She wasn't the same. She was weaker. Because now, she finally understood the weight of words. Now, She knew that telling someone to disappear is like burning a bridge and hoping they swim back. I don't hate you, Lauren, I said gently. She looked up with wide, hopeful eyes. Then, is there still a chance? I paused, then said something I had carried in my chest for 5 long, quiet, disciplined years. I'm not the one who disappeared. You are. You just didn't notice until I stopped waiting. Her lips quivered. But I still love you. I gave her a sad smile. Then love will have to be enough for you. And I walked away, not out of pride, not to hurt her, but because when you finally learn to value yourself, you no longer beg to be valued by anyone else. Behind me, she stood frozen, lost, not because she didn't know who I was anymore, but because she did. And now, she could never reach him again.